You see it everywhere. Invest in stocks. Buy the dip. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And look, I get it. We all want our money to work for us. But if you're diving into the market without a solid emergency fund, you aren't investing. You're gambling with your survival. Today, we're talking about the one thing that stands between you and financial ruin. If you don't have this break glass in case of emergency stash ready, you shouldn't put a single cent into the stock market. So, what exactly are we talking about here? Let's be crystal clear. An emergency fund is not a treat yourself to a spontaneous trip to the Maldives because you had a bad Tuesday fund. If this money is going towards something that makes you smile, you're doing it wrong. This is a liquid stash of cash, ideally sitting in a high-yield savings account where it can at least outrun inflation by a hair, dedicated solely to the absolute, non-negotiable disasters that life loves to hurl at your head. Think of it as financial body armor. We're talking about the worst-case scenario starter pack. This is for when your company's CEO decides to pivot to AI, and suddenly your job title no longer exists. This is for the moment your car's transmission doesn't just slip, but literally falls out of the chassis. We're talking about your roof deciding that 3 a.m. during a monsoon is the perfect time to start acting like a sieve, or your golden retriever deciding that your expensive leather loafers look like a 5-star Michelin meal, resulting in a vet bill that costs more than your first car. Most experts recommend saving 3 to 6 months of your basic living expenses. And please, pay attention to that word. Expenses. We aren't talking about your gross income. We're talking about the bare bones, I need to keep the lights on and the stomach full number. That means your rent, your utilities, your groceries, and your insurance, not your premium HBO subscription or your artisanal sourdough delivery service. You want enough cash so that if the world ends tomorrow, you can sit on your couch for half a year, eat your beans, and not have to worry about which organ you need to sell to pay the landlord. It's boring, it's unsexy, and it's the only thing keeping you from a total financial meltdown when life inevitably decides to get weird. I know what you're thinking. You're looking at that pile of cash in your savings account and crying because it's not out there in the wild hunting for gains. You're thinking, but my money could be earning 8% in the S&P 500. I'm basically losing money by letting it rot in a bank. Listen, I get the FOMO, but here's the truth. The stock market does not care about your problems. Imagine this. You take your last $5,000, literally every cent to your name, and you dump it into the market because some guy on the internet told you it was going to the moon. The very next month, the economy decides to have a collective nervous breakdown and the market crashes 20%. Now, your $5,000 is worth $4,000. But wait, it gets better. That same week, your boss calls a mandatory fun meeting that turns out to be a everyone is fired meeting. Suddenly, you have no income and your rent is due. Since you have zero cash, you are forced to crawl back to your brokerage account and sell your investments at the absolute bottom just to keep a roof over your head. You didn't just lose money. You turned a temporary paper loss into a permanent, soul-crushing financial scar. Investing without an emergency fund is like trying to build a 100-story skyscraper on a foundation made of wet napkins and hope. It looks great when the sun is shining, but the second a light breeze hits, the whole thing is coming down, and you're going to be the one trapped in the rubble. Beyond the math, there's the sleep well at night factor. When you have 6 months of cash tucked away, you don't panic when the news says a recession is coming. You don't stay at a toxic job because you're terrified of missing one paycheck. An emergency fund gives you leverage. It gives you the power to say no and the patience to stay invested in the market for the long haul because you know you'll never be forced to sell. So, how do you actually start building this fortress of solitude? You don't just wake up one day with 6 months of expenses under your mattress, unless you've recently robbed a very small, very local bank, which I do not recommend for your long-term financial health. First, we aim for the Oh Crap Starter Fund. This is a quick and dirty goal of $1,000 to $2,000. Why this specific amount? Because the universe has a sick sense of humor, and $1,000 is the exact price of every minor disaster known to man. Your refrigerator dies? $1,000. Your wisdom teeth decide to stage a bloody coup in your jaw? $1,000. You accidentally back your car into a very expensive, very antique fountain? That's probably $2,000, but you get the point. This starter fund is your shield against the tiny daggers life throws at you while you're trying to build the real armor. Step 2. You need to hide this money from yourself. If that cash is sitting in your primary checking account, it's not an emergency fund. It's incidental sushi money. You'll see that balance and suddenly convince yourself that a limited edition glow-in-the-dark keyboard is a productivity emergency. It isn't. You need to open a high-yield savings account at a completely different bank. I'm talking about a bank you don't even have the app for. Make it as inconvenient as possible to access. You want to have to remember a 32-character password and answer security questions about your third-grade pet's middle name just to see the balance. Third, and this is the secret sauce, automate the pain. Treat your emergency fund like a ruthless, soul-sucking debt collector who knows where you live. Set up a direct deposit so that a portion of your paycheck vanishes before you even see it. If you never see the money, you can't mourn its loss. You have to treat this like a non-negotiable bill, right up there with electricity and internet. Whether it's $50 a week or $500 a month, make it automatic. If you rely on willpower to save what's left over at the end of the month, you're going to end the month with exactly $0 and a very impressive collection of streaming subscriptions you don't watch. Step 4. The golden ticket moment. What happens when you finally hit that magical 6-month mark? You celebrate, but not by spending the money. You celebrate by finally becoming the investor you've been dreaming of. When that account is full, something fundamental shifts in your brain. You aren't just some person with a job anymore. You are officially bulletproof. You have successfully bought yourself half a year of freedom. Now, and only now, do you get to turn the fire hose of your extra cash toward the stock market. Because your foundation is solid, you can actually afford to be aggressive. You can watch a 10% market dip and think, ooh, a sale, instead of, how am I going to eat next week? You've graduated from playing defense to playing offense. You've built the fortress. And now it's time to start building the empire. Every dollar you invest from this point forward is a soldier fighting for your future wealth. And they can fight much harder knowing they don't have to be called back to pay for a broken water heater. Finally, let's talk about the post-disaster reconstruction. Imagine the worst happens. Your water heater decides to explode, turning your basement into a private indoor swimming pool you never asked for. You break the glass, you use the fund, and you fix the problem without a single ounce of debt. In that moment, you're going to feel like a financial superhero. But remember, a superhero without their shield is just a person in colorful spandex. Once the crisis is over, your number one priority isn't buying the dip in the latest tech stock, it's building that wall back up. Think of your emergency fund like a fire extinguisher. You don't use it to put out a kitchen fire and then just toss the empty canister back under the sink. You refill it immediately because life doesn't care that you just had an emergency last month. It's already planning the next one. Stop your investments, go back to survival mode, and funnel every spare cent back into that account until it's full again. You've proven the system works. Now make sure it's ready to work for you again next time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more finance videos like this. Take care.